Okay, so let's talk about the wheel. You see it literally everywhere, every single day. But have you ever really stopped to think about where it came from? You'd think it's been around forever, right? Well, its real origin story, it's one of the most surprising tales in all of human history.
Let's just dive right in with something that'll probably blow your mind. The wheel was not invented for transport. I know, right? So, if it wasn't for moving things around, what on earth was it for? That one question, right there, is the key to this whole story.
And that brings up a really big puzzle. I mean, humans built these incredible civilizations for thousands of years without the wheel. So if it's so obvious, so simple, why did it take tens of thousands of years to finally show up? Turns out the answer has a lot less to do with roads and a whole lot more to do with some serious engineering challenges.
All right, so to really get this, we've got to imagine a world with no wheels at all. And I want you to get any ideas of primitive people out of your head. This was a sophisticated world.
For thousands of years, people were building massive empires, incredible monuments like the pyramids. I mean, think about it. They were moving gigantic stones, trading goods across entire continents, building these complex societies, and they did it all without a single wheel. They were masters of using sledges, levers, just sheer manpower, and, incredible ingenuity. It wasn't that they were missing the wheel. They had just built their entire world to work perfectly fine without it.
And this is where we get to the real heart of the problem. We think of a wheel as just, a round object, but that's not nearly enough. A wobbly circle? Useless. A weak axle? It's just going to snap. See, the wheel isn't just one thing, it's a whole system.
For a wheel to actually do its job, you need all these different parts working together in perfect harmony. The wheel itself, it has to be a perfect circle for balance. The hole for the axle has to be dead center. And the connection between the wheel and the axle has to be super low friction. Getting all of that right, that wasn't some happy accident. It was a massive technological breakthrough.
So where did this big idea finally click? Well, the real story doesn't start on some ancient road. Nope, it starts in an artist's studio with a simple lump of clay.
We've got to go back about 6,000 years to ancient Mesopotamia. Right around this time, a brand new technology shows up that finally cracks the code of controlled rotation. And it had nothing to do with transport. It was all about creation.
And here it is, the potter's wheel. Its whole purpose, its entire reason for being, had zero to do with hauling heavy stuff from point A to point B. The goal was way more delicate. It was about spinning clay with perfect controlled speed so an artist could make beautiful, symmetrical pottery.
And the impact? Oh, it was an absolute game changer. Before the potter's wheel, making a pot was slow, hard work, and everyone was a little different. But with this new tool, suddenly you could crank out vessels that were stronger, perfectly uniform, and you could do it in a tiny fraction of the time.
So here's the key takeaway. The potter's wheel was the big breakthrough because, for the very first time, humans had totally mastered the idea of continuous, stable rotation. They weren't trying to move things across the world. They were trying to master motion itself, right in one spot.
And once that concept was in place, it was only a matter of time before some brilliant person had a wild idea. Hey, what if we took this spinning platform, tipped it on its side, and made it roll?
And you know what? That leap from one idea to the next happened incredibly fast, at least in historical terms. It was only about 500 years after the potter's wheel showed up that we start seeing the very first wheeled vehicles in the archaeological record. And yep, it's in the exact same part of the world.
Now don't picture a sports car. These first cars were basically tanks. They were heavy-duty, clunky machines. The wheels were just solid discs of wood, sliced right from a tree trunk. And the axle was fixed to them, so the whole thing turned together. They were built for pure power, and maybe a bit of prestige. Hauling crops or carrying important people in parades. They definitely weren't made for speed.
But wait, there's another twist in this story. You'd think that once the wheel was invented, it would spread like wildfire, right? That every single civilization would jump on board immediately? But that's not what happened at all.
Think about incredible civilizations like the Maya, the Aztec, and the Inca. For them, the wheel just wasn't a practical tool for getting around. Their worlds were full of dense jungles and super steep mountain trails where a wheeled cart would be totally useless. It was just way more efficient to use human porters or shore-footed pack animals like llamas. So the wheel isn't some magic bullet solution. Its usefulness is completely tied to the environment you're in.
Okay, so if its use in transport was kind of limited at first, then what made the wheel one of the most important inventions in all of human history?
Well, the answer is that its true power, its real potential, was only unleashed when it became a part of a machine.
The next huge leap forward was figuring out how to let the wheel spin freely around an axle that stayed put. This was a game changer. It slashed friction, boosted efficiency, and transformed the wheel from just a clunky rolling log into a precision mechanical part.
And once that happened, bam! The whole idea of the wheel just exploded. It became the beating heart of countless new technologies that had absolutely nothing to do with carts.
Take the water wheel, for example. It used that simple rotation to grab the power of a river, completely automating the backbreaking work of grinding grain for a whole village.
Then you've got clocks, little tiny interlocking wheels, which we call gears. Let us translate that same steady rotation into the incredibly precise measurement of time itself.
Fast forward a few centuries, and you get the pistons, gears, and flywheels inside steam engines. They are all based on that exact same principle of harnessing rotation. And they literally kicked off the Industrial Revolution and completely reshaped the world.
And that line continues all the way to today. Those massive turbines you see at power plants, they're the direct descendants of the very first water wheels, and they spin to generate the electricity that powers our entire modern world.
So when you really get down to it, the biggest invention wasn't the physical wheel itself. It was the idea behind it, the concept of controlled rotation, an idea that was first perfected by a potter, then adapted for carts, and eventually became the very engine of all the machines that keep rolling our civilization forward. The wheel didn't just change how we move, it fundamentally changed how we think.